So, item 2.1, minutes of the regular meeting of council held on Monday, September the 9th, 2019. Are there any errors or amendments? Seeing and hearing none, I declare them adopted as presented. 2.2, minutes of the special meeting of council held on Friday, September 20th, 2019. Are there any errors or amendments? Seeing and hearing none, I declare them adopted as presented. Minutes of the committee of the whole meeting held on Monday, September 30th, 2019. Are there any errors or amendments? Seeing and hearing none, I declare them adopted as presented. Item 2.4, minutes of the special meeting of council held Wednesday, October the 2nd, 2019. Are there any errors or amendments? Seeing and hearing none, I declare them adopted as presented. Item 2.5, minutes of the committee of the whole planning session held on Tuesday, October 15th, 2019. Are there any errors or amendments? Seeing, oh, DCOT? No?
Not for that in particular, but pardon my interruption. We neglected to put in adoption of the agenda at the beginning of the meeting. So you don't want to move adoption of the agenda when you complete.
Okay. So are there any errors or amendments on item 2.5 under minutes? No. Seeing or hearing none, I declare them adopted as presented. And move to adopt the agenda for tonight's meeting. So Councillor Toohey, second. Councillor Anderson, thank you very much. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. All right, we may continue. Item 3, there are no delegations. Item 4, European collared doves, page 15. I would make a motion to receive and file. Thank you, Councillor Davenport. Just to note that as much of a nuisance as they are a protected species.
Oh, are they?
And they are everywhere. So, any discussion on these nuisance birds? And they are undoubtedly a nuisance. And they are impossible to hit with your vehicle. Just saying. Any discussion? On the motion, then all those in favor, opposed, carried. Item 4.2, a letter of thanks from Mark Despot. What is council's pleasure on this item? Councillor Toohey.
I move that we receive and file.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Anstead, thank you very much. Is there any discussion on this matter? A lovely letter to receive of thanks from the Despot family. All right, no further comments on the motion, then all those in favor, opposed, carried. Item 4.3, letter from UBCM regarding the presentation that the Village of Ashcroft made at the Small Talk Forum. Councillor Toohey.
I'd like to move that we receive and file.
Thank you very much. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Anderson, thank you very much. Any discussion on this? Councillor Toohey.
Thank you, Mayor Roden. I must say, when I felt very proud, Barbara, when you were up there and did the presentation. It was a great presentation, and it was extremely well received by the whole audience. And it was to the point and easy to understand, and made me feel good. I was from Ashcroft, and that was my mayor up there.
Oh, thank you very much. It was. I was glad to do it. I did receive a lot of positive feedback, as I noted in my UBCM report. So that was very good to hear. It's obviously a very common concern of communities large and small around the province, particularly, but not limited to the north of BC. Any further discussion on this? On the motion, then all those in favor, opposed, carried. Thank you. Continuing with the UBCM theme, item 4.4, a lovely letter from Vivian McLean regarding her experience at UBCM. What is council's pleasure? Councillor Davenport?
Move to receive and file.
Thank you. Councillor Anstead, second. Thank you. Any discussion on this? Councillor Toohey.
Thank you, Mayor Roden. Again, she was a delight to have down there with us. I got to know her a lot better, even though I mean, she's worked for me, but I didn't see her in those lights. And very intelligent young lady and mature, and I was really pleased to have her with us.
She was a wonderful representative for the village of Ashcroft. I've acted with her. I know you drove her back up. I drove her down. It was wonderful to spend that time with her.
Yeah.
And it was particularly wonderful reading this and speaking to her about it, to see UBCM through a completely different set of eyes.
Yeah.
We go there in one capacity, she's there in a completely different one, and so to get her insights and her reaction to what she saw and heard was really eye-opening. And also, thank you to Southern Interior Local Government Association for providing opportunities like this for the youth in our region. Councillor Davenport.
She brought excitement, like when I was around her, it was really kind of exciting to have somebody, from our youth that was engaged and so interested. So I was excited when she was talking about things and sitting down next to her at different things that we were at, the resolutions, and when the resolution came up to lower the age to 16, that was quite a moment, I think, for her and for all of us as well. So, yeah.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this point? No, seeing none on the question, then all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Information correspondence listing for October 28th, 2019. I would move to receive and file the information correspondence for the October 28th council meeting. Councillor Toohey, second. Thank you very much. Any discussion on any of the items in the information correspondence? No? Seeing none then, on the question, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Unfinished business, actionable motions list for September of 2019, page 21. What is council's pleasure? I would move to receive and file. Thank you,
Second.
Councillor Toohey, thank you very much. Thank you again to DCO Dick and staff for acting so promptly on all these things. It's nice to see all the complete. Any discussion on any of the items in the actionable motion and task list tracker? Councillor Toohey.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just wondering if we have received 2 or 3 quotes yet on the pressure valve vessel.
We have received 1 quote for $125,000. We're trying to get 2 other quotes. We've reached out a couple of times to 2 other companies with the expertise for this, and we have not yet received any more.
Thank you.
Sorry, they need to come down and have a look at it. So that's they're quite, so trying to get them in here to actually have a look and then give a quote after they've gone through the system. That's the challenge. The quoting process is, they also have to come and see it. And so we're following up, but we can only ask. Okay.
Thank you. Councillor Davenport.
I have a question about the deadline. Is there a deadline for the quotes to be put in?
Your worship.
We did not put out a request for quote or a request for proposal. So we didn't include that deadline. We just simply reached out.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none then, on the question, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item 5.2, Pathways to Wellness, Evans Road Walking Path, pages 22 to 25. I would move option 2, that council include at the 2020 budget discussions consideration of a trails master plan that could identify feasible trails and pathways for the development of a trail and walking path system in the village of Ashcroft. Councillor Anderson, second. Thank you very much. Any discussion on this? Councillor Anderson?
I think for me, I think it's great to have that connectivity and the trails. And I'm not opposed to that, but I am concerned about the liabilities that the village would take with respect to this, because it is quite narrow in places. And, you know, an accident can possibly happen. And so for my biggest concern would be how the village would be responsible with respect to that trail system
Thank you.
along with the field.
And I'd like to thank the people, Jim Duncan and Lori Mertens and the other volunteers who have worked so hard to clear a path along Evans Road and to make it a place where people can more comfortably walk at the moment. It has been identified by people that they would like a trail system in the village of Ashcroft. And I think a trail master plan would be a good step in identifying all sorts of places that we could have walking trails of various levels to suit people with different mobility needs and issues, and also a way of making sure that those trails are as connected as possible, bearing in mind that we have 3 very distinct neighborhoods which are separated from each other by things like a river, a highway. We're never going to be able to have something like what I think the village of Clinton has, which is a trailhead from which other trails radiate. I don't know that that would be possible in Ashcroft, but to make them as interconnected as possible so that people are not in the position of walking a trail and then maybe having to get in their car to go to the next one, which somewhat defeats the purpose. It also fits in very well with our Wellness Awaits You, and I think that having a trails master plan, identifying different trails, is going to working for every age group and demographic, so for seniors, as well as for people who can do the 3 Meadows Trail, which calls for a certain amount of physical ability. As someone who has never walked it, but watches lots of people do it. So, any further discussion? Councillor Davenport.
I have a question about the 2020 budget discussions. When would that be taking place?
That takes place in early spring of 2020. Something that other communities used the rural dividend program for, which is now sadly on hold, was the development of a trail master plan. I was hoping that that would be an option for the village to get funding for that development. Unfortunately, that is not an option for at least another year, possibly 2, and maybe even longer. One interesting thing, though, that I remember, I believe it was 2011, there was a group of TRU students whose instructor used to come out with his students regularly, and they did do a trails assessment, and they made a public presentation about it to the village. So it would be interesting to see if the notes or information from that presentation was available, either if we have a record here or if TRU has it, to just get that as a basis, maybe as a starting point to find out what work has been done before and what their determination was 8-9 years ago. Councillor Toohey.
Thank you, Mayor Roden. I do believe that there actually is a trail book that might be at the museum. They may have a copy of it.
There is a trail book that was done. Unfortunately, it does include at least one trail over the Ashcroft Terminal property.
Oh, okay.
So 2 or 3 years ago, the Ashcroft Terminal, we were asked not to print any more of it. It's impossible, of course, to recall it, but not to print any more. Gold Trail Community Society does have a very good trail guide, and it does include the Inukshuk Trail in Ashcroft as one of the trails. And good. Any further discussion? Councillor Davenport.
If we move forward with this recommendation, I would suggest that council and the village possibly reaches out to Jim Duncan and his folks who have been working really hard at doing this, and be in consultation with whatever trails might be coming, you know, what might be they might be involved with, or this trail perhaps can be under a different set of ideas, who knows. So, but I would put forth the hopeful consultation with these hardworking community members that have definitely, you know, put this as what we need in our community.
Thank you. That's an excellent point. And from what I understand of the process that they went through up in the village of Clinton, there was fairly extensive community consultation with not only people who would use the trails, but people who I think had worked on some of the trails or knew about them, so that they could get their input about what work had been done and what people wanted to see. So certainly there would be a community consultation aspect to a trail master plan.
And considering that we have a subdivision hopefully starting next year, there's going to be more people housing, more people moving to the area, so I think that would be important to get input from them as well.
I think that's a good point. Any further discussion on this? No, seeing none. On the question, then all those in favor? Opposed and carried. Thank you. Move on to new business. Item 6.1, parking safety concerns along Ranch Road. I would move that the Village of Ashcroft send a letter to residents of Ranch Road, making them aware of the concerns regarding vehicles parked on the boulevard or on the edge of the road, and ask them to please refrain from parking in those areas. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Anderson, thank you very much. It happened in the previous council, but after the lines went in, the new crosswalk was put in at Western and the signage went up, the residents along Ranch Road were contacted because there were one or two residences that had people all walking along had issues. And I understand that all the residents who were contacted were extremely amenable. They were apologetic and they complied. So I should think that a friendly letter to them would remind them. I think it's probably just an issue of, it's been a couple of years now and kind of going back into old habits. Any further discussion on this? Councillor Toohey.
Thank you, Mayor. It's obvious it's going to be an issue forever. Unfortunately, that road just isn't wide enough, and it would be great to have a sidewalk, all that sort of thing. Hopefully sometime in the future we are able to do something more than that, but I think at this time I think that's a good solution for now, but it definitely, I have concerns about that whole road and how it works. I don't see an easy solution.
No. One suggestion that was made at a council meeting a year and a half or 2 years ago was that the students at the school be encouraged, who walk to school along Ranch, be encouraged to turn off at Riverside and walk down Riverside and then go through the pathway that goes from Riverside to the tennis courts and then around or through the tennis courts. But it was pointed out that students, young people, prefer the line of least resistance. So they will take the quickest, most direct route, and it is not Riverside through the tennis courts. But that is an option, of course, and if parents are concerned about their children walking along Ranch, that is an option for them to direct their children to take. Any further discussion on this?
Just curious, is there a bylaw at all regarding that?
Regarding parking?
Yeah, parking, just
There-
normally anyway.
Is nothing right now, I don't believe, about parking on the boulevard. There is nothing that prevents people. See,
Not unless there's a yellow curb, your worship.
Right.
Thank you.
So, as I say, people were very amenable last time they were asked, so I don't anticipate that there would be any issues, particularly the closer you get to the school. Any further discussion? On the question then, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item 6.2, Ashcroft Fire Rescue, request for donation of ice time at the Drylands Arena. Councillor Toohey.
Thank you, Mayor Roden. I move that the village donates the ice time between 6 and 8 on January the 11th for the first responders event.
Thank you. I'll second that. Councillor Anderson. Any discussion on this? As excitement builds with every new Facebook posting that goes up and YouTube video, I'm looking more and more forward to January 11th.
Yeah.
Any further, Councillor Anderson?
I think this is awesome. You know, the proceeds from the event are going to help low-income families, you know, to be safe from fire with their smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors, so fully in support of that.
And it's also a reminder of the fact that our fire department does offer the service to people who would otherwise have difficulty installing a smoke detector in their home, that they will go if you if you have the smoke detector, they will install it for you to ensure that it's safely done and that you are protected. Any further discussion? No, seeing none on the question then, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Item 6.3, Healthcare Wellness Coalition, invitation to meet, pages 30 to 37. I would like to make a motion that the Ashcroft Council representative on the Interior Health Round Table ask the health table, to set up a standing committee to address this issue. The standing committee to be made up of members of the society formerly known as the Wellness and Healthcare Action Coalition, Ashcroft Council members, any other community members who might be interested, and Interior Health, specifically to discuss a 7-day per week healthcare model and report back to the health table. Thank you, Councillor Toohey. Just a bit of background, the health table, Interior Health has indicated that they really want to start proceeding with the primary care network, or pursuit of us joining the primary care network. And so I felt that it would be an idea to have a standing committee specifically to address the 7-day-a-week healthcare, which could then report back to the health table as a committee, so that it is still at the committee table and it's still being discussed, but privately from the discussion on the primary care network, the emergency department issue could be discussed, and we could get community input and look at various models for how that could work. It would also perhaps lay the table for the Interior Health table to create other standing committees then as they become necessary. Is there any further discussion on this? Councillor Anderson?
Well, I have to say that while I do understand that coalition's goal of a 7-day-a-week model and their insistence for it, as well as this is what the community wants, we do have several tables going already. Mm-hmm. And I just feel that, having, getting involved in sitting at more tables seems to be pretty cumbersome and complicates it. Mm-hmm. So, in my opinion anyway, I think just, the fact that we have the planning table with Interior Health, that's a step in the right direction. It might not, yes, they are moving to a primary care network model, but those issues still can be brought to that table. Mm-hmm. So starting another table just seems...
No, this would not be another table. This would be a part of that Interior Health table. It would just be a committee of people under that who would then report back to the main table. And so it would actually, I think, give more opportunity to discuss the emergency department and 7-day-a-week healthcare, apart from the health table, the round table, which wants to move forward with primary care. This would be a discussion purely about emergency department and 7-day-a-week healthcare, and looking at the various models for that, and then reporting back to the table that's already in existence. So it would be a committee of that table. It wouldn't be...
The coalition has a seat at that table,
mm-hmm.
correct? And still does?
Yes. They still do. We just enable the broader discussion rather than having the 7-day-a-week healthcare model discussed at length at every existing roundtable meeting or planning table meeting. It would still be discussed, but the primary discussion would be done elsewhere. Councillor
Davenport. This is a hopeful list that they would like to invite. We're just reflecting is that it also represents different mayors and councils, which is encouraging. I think other councils from Cache Creek, Clinton, and Ashcroft, and the TNRD area directors too. I think they're important voices in the discussion. They certainly are people from those towns who come and use our services in the emergency department. So I understand what you're saying about it being another table, but I think this is voices that need to be heard, and the discussion that needs to take place, because obviously that meeting this is the discussion that needs to really move forward, you know.
That's right.
I agree,
Yeah.
Councillor Davenport, but they are invited to the coalition table, the meetings there, and there's representation from Clinton as well as from Cache Creek and Ashcroft. So it just seems to me almost repeating the same thing, except on their turf. That's basically what it seems like to me.
I think what it does though is it gives the opportunity to have the separate discussion about the 7-day-a-week healthcare while still enabling the planning table to talk about the primary care network. And also, you know, with the primary care network, the emergency department is going to be part of that. So, you know, that's going to be one of the things that we have, the primary care network will also need to look at going forward is, you know, so the discussion brought forward about the different models that people are looking at, it'll be then a question of, say, how does that fit within the larger primary care network scope? Any further discussion on this? No? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Would you like your vote recorded?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion is carried. Item 6.4 under new business, Charge North EV Charging Station Initiative. Possible collaboration for a level 3 charger, pages 38 to 42. I would move that we contact Charge North and ask them to come and present to us about collaboration on a phase 3 charging station, fast charging station. Councillor Anstett, sorry, I heard you and I saw Councillor Anstett. Any discussion on this? Just to mention as well that BC Hydro is now, I believe, moving on to a new phase of their fast charging stations, having already established fast charging stations in communities on major highways. They're now, I believe, going to be looking at establishing fast charging stations in communities that are not necessarily on a major highway and or in communities that already have one and maybe might need a second one based on demand. So I think that's something that we need to be aware of as well, because we have the infrastructure in place to put in a fast charging station near the water treatment plant, which fits all the criteria that BC Hydro want. We have the phase 3 power, municipally owned land, close to downtown, washroom facilities nearby in season. Councillor Davenport.
Now, this is a new initiative, right? Because I can't remember, did we not actually apply for grant funding for?
Yes,
Twice, and was it denied, or?
We're not successful on either occasion. Charge North has actually been around for a little while now.
Okay. Great. Clarification.
Any other discussion around this? No? Seeing none then on the question, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Bylaws, we have none to consider. Council reports. I have 2 reports. Well, the Friends of Historic Hat Creek Society is not a report, it's a press release, but it very nicely sums up the discussion at the last board meeting, so it basically repeats anything I could have said but with greater detail. So as you can see from the report, at the moment everything is in a state of limbo as we wait for the Heritage Branch to make a decision, although the press release does make the very valid point that it is the tourism business industry does work in 1, 2, 3-year cycles. So, you know, not only are they already planning for next year's tourist season, but in some cases they're planning for the 2021 and even 2022 tourist seasons, particularly the international operators. So that is why the Friends believe that a 1-year extension is just not enough. And then my other report, we have TNRD, the current, and just a note that at the last TNRD meeting, which was on the 17th of October, Russ Black, the President of Environmental Services for Belcorp, the parent company of Waste Tech, has indicated that the Campbell Hill landfill, previously the landfill extension, is set to be up and running in December of this year.
Nice.
And then you have the TNRD press release about Steam Locomotive 2141 virtual reality experience, which is another exciting initiative from the TNRD. And you have my UBCM report. And I see, in looking it over, that I neglected to mention what Let's Not Waste Time was on page 51. It was a workshop about recycling and various initiatives coming to the recycling programs in BC. Any comments, questions on any of those items? No? Councillor Anderson, do you have any reports?
Not really. NDIT meeting isn't until January, and I wasn't able to attend the last CP meeting. I was ill. But I have minutes from it, and not a lot to report on.
Thank you. Councillor Anstead?
No reports. I was not able to attend the last seniors meeting, but I will make sure I'm able to next week.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Davenport, any reports?
I have a couple of quick ones, and they will be written when I get those forms. Economic development, of course, council has reported in the information about through the minutes. We did meet with Dale and Colleen from ADCD Consulting. They took us through a very interesting SWOT exercise, and we nailed down a lot of things that I think were important from council and staff, and from Village's point of view, what the strategy might look like. Of course, the survey, which is out and about in social media. We did a little bit of a blast today, and today being the last day, there's a deadline of 12 midnight, so if you haven't filled out the survey, which takes five minutes, took me about 10 because I really had to think about it, and think about my answers, as hopefully all of you should as well too. It's a really interesting survey, and I think it is it would give the consulting firm a really wide perspective on what Ashcroft thinks and feels they want for what's important for economic development and what it means, and that's about it for that one. And then tourism, thank you DCO Dick for presenting the figures for the Visitor Info Center. That was really interesting to look at. Thinking that August is our top month. And in viewing this, I see that Val Parks, who has been the volunteer coordinator for the tourism booth, she's actually going to be leaving this is her last summer. So I wanted to direct staff to create a letter of thank you for Val, or some sort of card that perhaps we can all sign, and I'm not sure how that would work, but she's been with the volunteer booth, I'm not sure how many years. Does anybody know that offhand?
4, I believe.
4, yeah. So, and I look forward to the new coordinator for next summer. I'm not sure how that works in our community. If there's anybody out there listening in social media land that wants to do the job, just give the office a call. And yeah, that's about it for tourism.
So do we need a motion then to direct staff to send a card to Val Parks thanking her for her?
So your worship, if the intention of the card is from council, for sure, because then we'll put together something and make sure we collect all of your signatures. I think it's a courtesy that we normally do anyway, just from a staff perspective, but if you want that council input, then a motion would be great.
All right. So Councillor Davenport, would you like
Put a
to?
motion forward to direct staff to create a letter of thank you for Val Parks for her 4 years in volunteering for the volunteer booth.
From council?
From council, sorry.
Thank you. I'll second that. Any discussion? Councillor Tudor?
I'm just wondering if we can't do something a little bit more than a card. She has put in many, many, many hours, either a gift certificate, flowers, chocolate, something.
Sure.
But I think it should definitely be something more than just a card.
Great.
In case, Your Worship, in case Ms. Parks views this council meeting on the Hub online network prior to getting that.
Oh, right.
Perhaps staff can put together a package.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, adjusting to the new reality. All right, thank you very much. And Councillor Toohey? Oh, sorry, we need to vote. Yes, all those in favor. We better all vote in favor now. Let's see it before. Opposed, all carried. Thank you very much. All right, now we move on to Councillor Toohey.
Yes, now you can. Heritage Committee. We haven't had a meeting. I usually just meet with Kathy, but we do know what the theme of 2020 is, and it will bringing the past into the future. That's the theme. So we can kind of go on anything with that. So, and we are still working together with getting that old fire hall cleaned out.
Okay. That would be a great way to bring in the Quest Upon virtual or augmented reality tour of downtown Ashcroft.
Communities in Bloom, the meeting was on October the 9th. We went over the evaluation and started talking about forming a group called the Deadheaders. This would be a social event, but one of the comments from the judges this year was that our flowers had a lot of old deadheads on them, which should be removed. So we've talked about making it a social event where we go out once a week, or different people of the community, not even necessarily people that belong to Communities in Bloom, just go for a walk through town, deadhead the flowers, and then go for a coffee somewhere afterwards, and just make it a social event. And there's actually a lady that's well into her 80s that approached me and asked me about that. And so I know that it's something that I think that will work quite well.
Somebody's approached me on that too.
Oh, there you
Can I
go.
deadhead these?
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah. The Communities in Bloom has also talked about ordering more planters for next year. This is the desert planters, which have worked out so well. I myself had 2 this year in front of the bakery, and I also look after the 2 in front of the Legion, which were just the regular planters. And the difference in the flowers was amazing. We did a cleanup on October 20th, removing all of the plants out of the planters, except that I did notice we missed the ones in front of the village office. So I'm not sure if someone will be able to do that or what will happen with those, but they do need to be cleaned up. And during that time, because it was people that belonged to the Communities in Bloom that did the CN Mosaic, we stopped by after cleaning up and just had a little look at the mosaic as well. Our next meeting is on November 13th, but in the meantime, I know that Andrea has talked about setting up a meeting with our CAO Yasu to discuss projects for next year and review the comments from the judges. As you can see, we did get 5 blooms with a bronze, which is great because we are competing nationally, but both of these judges have been to Ashcroft previously, and our marks actually had gone down in a few of the categories. So those are things that we want to discuss with Anne on how we can make things a little bit better. So that's my report for Communities in Bloom. else did I do? I attended as an alternate the meeting for the seniors. Water. On September 19th. It was a potluck lunch, but I thought that was a great thing, so I brought dessert. And during that, they did discuss having something done with the back door, but I know that there's been lots of discussion since on what can be done about that. They also were having a fall harvest tea on October 26th, which I did attend. On October 17th was their meeting after the one I had, but I was unable to attend that one. And I have discussed with them about making Ashcroft an age-friendly community and some ideas, and they definitely have some people that are interested in being champions of perhaps being on the committee and working with us on that. The next meeting for them is on November the 14th. And then just a couple other things that I did since our last meeting. September 17th, I did walk down the Slough Road with Jim Duncan, with my husband. And it was a great walk. I was exhausted after, but it was good for me. October 5th, attended the Honor Ranch opening and really looking forward to having them be part of our community. On October 7th, I attended the HON meeting, which is the online network, as we probably are all now starting to get familiar with, I hope. They are doing daily reports at 7, 8, and 9 a.m. And you can go on YouTube or Facebook, and please like and subscribe. The more they have, the better it looks for them, and the better it looks for our community. They've also started an internship for young people that are interested, and I know they've had one young man I seen at an event, so I'm not sure. They're still...
We actually have 2 interns.
Okay, they have 2 interns, which is great because that's exposing young people. So it's getting our community all working together. Also, they will do interviews. I believe they've interviewed Mayor Roden, and they will do coming events, etc., that sort of thing. So I want to just say to everybody, try to help them get it out there, because it's really important. October 25th, I attended a workshop on community wildfire resilience planning workshop in Kelowna with CAO Gansu and Fire Chief White, and it was very informative. We'll be receiving the information that we discussed on that and on actions that can be taken to make our community more fire safe, as well as CAO Yansu showed me a book that we got today as well. I learned a lot about the funding that is available and how we can make our community fire smart, and hopefully we'll move forward with Fire Chief White on that. He seemed quite enthusiastic with it as well. And that's all I have to report.
Thank you. All right, any comments? CAO Yansu.
I don't have any reports on this particular agenda.
All right, thank you. CFO Bell.
Your Worship, I have 2 reports. The first one is the financial statement one, and that was just, we all signed off on the financial committee signed off. In the next meeting, we don't see a record of it, so just a resolution too. And then the next one is for the water treatment remaining portions.
All right, thank you. I mean, looking at the report on the water treatment plant, I think it's fantastic that we'll be able to go ahead, make a recommendation that we approve proceeding with the river intake upgrades and, getting ahead of myself. First, move that council approve the 2018 audited financial statements as presented. There is a copy at the back of the room. Second? Second, Councillor Toohey, thank you very much. Any discussion on this? Congratulations on the village obtaining another clean audit. Thank you. Another excellent job. They phoned me while I was in at UBCM to ask me a few questions, so it was a pleasure to be able to, or sorry, the auditors phoned me while I was at UBCM to ask a few questions, and it was a pleasure to be able to just say everything is excellent, in tip-top condition. Need discussion? No? Seeing none then on the question, all those in favor? Opposed, carried. Move on to page 55. And I will move that council approves proceeding with the river intake upgrades and backup generator to take advantage of the remaining grant to fund 2 critical pieces of village water infrastructure. Councillor Anstett, second. Thank you very much. And discussion on this. Councillor Tui.
Thank you, Mayor Roden. I think it was great for us to go on that tour and for Brian to explain to us exactly what this intake and how much easier it will make things, so that we can change those pumps if we need to, and it just is something that's definitely required. It seems a shame to have it such an ancient looking feed to our lovely water system. So I think it's a great idea, and if we let the money go, from what I understand, it's a good possibility we will never see any more money to help us to do that. So while we have it, I think we should complete it and make it a full meal deal, not just halfway done.
Well, I mean, as pointed out on page 55, the access to the pumps has become more and more unpredictable with the freshet being more unpredictable. So I think this is an excellent option, which means that you're not having to worry if river levels are too high, looking at the safety of divers. And also the backup generator for pump station number 2 in the wake of the Elephant Hill wildfire, the need for backup generators for our pump stations was something that was discussed. Now we knew that there was going to be a backup generator with the water treatment plant. And of course, Mesa Vista is the one reservoir in Ashcroft that did go dry during that extensive power outage. So this is was identified as a particularly crucial piece of infrastructure that we needed to look at in the event of another sustained power outage. And I would also just like to say here, thank you and kudos to CFO Bala, to staff, to crew, to everyone who has worked so hard on this water treatment plant to allow us to have this space in the money that we did get from the federal and provincial governments. I think it's fantastic, not only that we have had, our share has been so little, but that we actually have room left under the cap to proceed with 2 major infrastructure projects that otherwise, who knows how long it would have taken us to come up with the funds to address these issues. Any further discussion? No? Councillor Tu.
Thank you, Mayor Roden. We will still have to get approval from the government, though, is that not correct? That you have to send for?
Your Worship, I've been talking with the ministry, and they're open to it. And they're very pleased we are under budget, because that rarely happens, and they're pleased to let us finish it. And I've had discussions about both items. It's getting the council resolution and getting it forwarded, basically.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion, questions, comments on the question? Then all those in favor, opposed, and carried. And we have 3 reports from Deputy Corporate Officer Dick.
Yes, Your Worship, just end of season reports for the Legacy Park, the pool and visitor info center. You can see on all 3 reports, there's the stats, the Legacy Park income and the visitor info, for the visitor stats that were there. It's just for your information.
Thank you. No, I was talking to the Legacy Park manager, who mentioned that he has seen in his, I believe, 3 years here now, people coming back regularly. They make this part of their itinerary every year now, a stop at the Legacy Park. And while it's unfortunate that the washroom, shower facility, laundry facility were not open quite in time, it's really great to see them in place. They'll be fully in place and operational for the opening of the campground the campground next season. Any further discussion? Councillor Toohey?
Of course there is. I think that the fellow that was looking after the Legacy Park has made some good comments on things that could, signage for one, that's something that we should look at for better signage for next year. As well as when I was down there and looked at the new mosaic, definitely there's some edging and maybe a need for some more gravel, tidying things up along the riverbank, that sort of thing that could make it look a little bit more attractive. So I think it's something that we should consider in the future to either have him do or have staff do for us.
Okay, thank you.
It's something to look at.
And it was great to see, you know, obviously we had a much better summer in 2019 than 2017 and 2018 for the pool, so that's excellent to see that that's still going strong. And it is, Cache Creek has not yet determined when they will be having a public meeting to discuss finances and the pool for next season, but that is something that we do need to keep in mind as DCO Dick notes here. Because if the Cache Creek pool, for example, does not open next year, that will have an impact on our pool. We had school groups from, I believe, 100 Mile, Savanaugh come here this year. So if the Cache Creek pool is not open, they will almost certainly look to come here again. So. All right, and Councillor Toohey?
Thank you, Mayor Roden. Just to comment on the visitor center, I think that's also something that we don't want to leave too late in finding a new coordinator for it. I think we should take into consideration possibly some funding for staffing it. I don't know whether we could employ a student for that sort of thing, or if we could do it in cooperation with the museum. But it's definitely something we don't want to leave until too late, because they do open up in May.
Yes.
So yeah, I think it's important that we make sure we get that looked after.
And also, Gold Country Community Society, I think, is going back to having their familiarization tour earlier in May. So obviously the person who's in charge of the visitor center would probably want to take advantage of that opportunity to see another community. Or to participate if that community happens to be Ashcroft. Councillor Toomey.
Thank you. Just further to that, there were some concerns too that we should make sure that we look into those, that they don't also just get filed away. Not necessarily on the homeless person, I think that got resolved, but a bigger budget for needing things, that sort of thing. So yeah, just to take it all into consideration and relook at this.
Great. Thank you very much. Any other comments? CFO Bala?
Your worship, on this update, we haven't gotten word about the hot water tub.
No.
So it's still outstanding. We have inquired, but we haven't heard back. We're hoping to get that. That's a huge plus for the pool, and the seniors really enjoy that and use it. With this one, we're hoping to hear back, but there hasn't been a word.
Thank you for that. Anything else? I move to receive the verbal and written reports as presented. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Anderson, thank you very much. Any further discussion? On the motion, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. And we move on to question period.
Well, I might as well start.
Jim Nelson.
Thank you for hearing me anyway. I know there is certain liability along the walkway, but if you drive down Government Street, go past the S curves, you'll find you have a curve that's about this wide, straight down about 30 feet. Have you considered that liability too? You know, there's liabilities in everything we do. You know, I'm hoping somehow we can come up with a solution for the liability on a walking path. But like I said, other than that, you also need to look at your other liabilities in town. Okay.
Thank you.
Just that one. And then I'm nominating for future. We'll share.
I've got actually several. I'll start with 2.1. You go on your minutes, the minutes of the regular meeting held September 9th. Just a question with regards, probably to Councillor Davenport, with regards to the economic, or EDCD consulting firm. I understand that the government has withdrew the BC Rural Dividend Fund 6th intake period, which was from June 15th to August 15th. And I'm just wondering, does this affect at all the $35,000 that was applied for and received for this development of the tourism, economic development and tourism strategy?
Sorry, just a reminder that questions come through the chair.
Okay.
Thank you.
Through the chair.
Thank you. So, Councillor Davenport, I'm sorry, what page are you on here on this? I know you said I did 2.1, but...
2.1, page 1 to 5.
I think Deputy Corporate Officer Dick has some information on that particular grant.
All right, can you see it?
Thank you, Your Worship. So that particular project isn't funded through rural dividend at all. It is funded through the UBCM. It's solely funded through NDIT and the Economic Development Capacity Funding grant that's available to us.
Thank you. Same on those minutes, the WSP Consulting CN Railway Cessation Project, is there any further information about that? Whistle stopping?
I do not know if there's any further information on that. I will follow up with that and get back to you.
Thank you. I really like the way Legacy Park's looking down there. Just one problem is when they put the higher curbs where you drain your sewers. Your drain is here, they put a curb that goes out and then goes out at an angle instead of going straight. So now when you drive up with your vehicle, the cement pad that you could put your sewer drain over, so if it spilled, went into the sewer, it's now back. So I think you need to look at maybe extending that flat pad a little bit because of the curb. My motorhome's not bad, but if you have a longer like truck and trailer like I had before, you're even further away from the drain. So, you know, it looks good, but I just noticed when the last time I dumped that was an issue. I spilled some stuff on the ground instead of where I could wash it up. Okay.
Thank you very much.
With regards to 2.3 to 2.5 in the minutes, I am quite diligent about attending meetings, and September 30th was not, committee of the whole meeting was not on the schedule for meeting. And the special meetings of September 20th and October 2nd, I did not know about those. So I'm just wondering, where was public notice given? And is there a way to increase that communication so that, you know, people like me that are interested in meetings actually can attend those?
All agendas are put up on the village website, and all statutory requirements for posting information about public meetings is done and was done in those instances. And I think this ties back into the communications discussion that we had earlier in the committee of the whole meeting. This is something that would be addressed by that discussion about further and better communicating information like this to the public in an emergent manner or a timely manner, shall we say?
So that committee of the whole meeting was not published on the list from the beginning of the year, September 30th.
It was not on the published list at the beginning of the year, but it was advertised in accordance with statutory regulations. Occasionally, as with special council meetings, we have to add council meetings that are not on the list that are given at the beginning of the year because of emergent issues that come up unexpectedly.
So how was it advertised, so I know in the future where to look?
I believe it's put on the village website, and notices are put up around town on the bulletin board here. And any other bulletin boards?
I don't think so.
So I think in the past we have put them up at the post office. What I don't know. Okay. Thank you.
4.1, with regards to the letter. I'm just curious about the redaction of personal information. So you crossed out information with regards to the first letter, with regards to the bench, the citizen requesting the bench thank you letter. I could see his name, and definitely on my letter I can see my name. So I'm just wondering, in the past there's never been a redaction of personal information, and I'm just wondering, 4.1 I could not read at all, 4.2 I could read, and of course mine I could read as well through the blackout of those redactions. So just wondering what's the purpose of it. I could still see, like, public can still see the people that wrote the letter, except for that very first one where there is no personal information given. So why are you choosing some people that you could see names and other people you can't see names?
I don't believe that it was the intention to redact any information on the letter from Mark Despot, since he was specifically writing to thank the village on behalf of his uncle. And regarding yours, which is on page... All right, hang on. 27, thank you very much, Councillor. I'm sorry, I do not know on page 26 whether that was intended to be redacted or whether that was just a highlighter color that didn't pick up. Nancy.
Your Worship, the intention of redacting is not to conceal identity, but it is to conceal contact information, because that's information we need to be very sensitive about. So,
Right. Okay, thank you. So it appears in this instance that it's unfortunate that on page 26 the information did come through, but I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, like I said, I can read through it on page 26. On page 15 I can't, and the name is crossed out on page 15. On page 26 it's not crossed out, and neither is it crossed out on the letter from Mr. Despot. So just a question as to consistency of redaction, and
I think it's just a case of making sure that someone goes very heavy on the indelible mark.
so with regards to 4.2, the bench, I have followed council meetings quite diligently, and I'm just wondering, I have never seen information about a request for the bench to be moved, and I'd like to know when that was requested and if the village paid for that, or did the nephew pay for that?
I'm unable to answer that question. I would assume that a question like that about moving a bench would be a purely staff-approved matter, would not necessarily come before council, but I can find out that information and contact you.
Thank you. Okay, on 6.1, with regards to the transportation of
Parking safety concern on Ranch Road?
let me just see. Sorry, I can't read my own writing, so I'll skip that one. 6.4, the EV charging stations. Are you working on a protocol with regards to charging at all? I just noticed in the news that there are some issues down in the Lower Mainland where people are parking the whole day and plugging in their vehicles and not leaving and going to do other things. Are you thinking about a protocol for when electric vehicles become a lot more prominent? And
that is not something we have discussed, as we currently have no electric vehicle charging stations in the village. That's something that might have to be considered down the road if we are successful in getting them. And certainly I would suspect that the experience of other communities in dealing with this, what seems to be a suddenly emergent issue, would be something that we would use as a guideline.
thank you. Mayor Roden, with regard to your report, 8.1, do you know that virtual steam locomotive at the TNRD, is that a one-day experience only that's happening at the library?
I haven't had, I believe it is moving to the, it's going to be at the North Kamloops Library later on. The unveiling was at the TNRD, in the TNRD building, the atrium of the main library on the 17th of October. So I haven't had a chance yet to speak with the TNRL to see what the intention is with that going forward, but I believe it is intended to be permanent.
And is that right in the library section, or where, what section of the?
I believe right now they're just doing a couple of presentations because it is still fairly new. And I don't know what it's going to look like. They haven't yet told us what it's going to look like next year, whether this is going to be something that will move around the TNRD or will move around various locations in Kamloops.
So it's just a presentation?
It was just, it was a presentation and an unveiling of it.
Okay. And with regard to the October 17th meeting, there was in the current, a section about RVs bylaw changing to 2400 to the bylaw, and the RVs that were used as temporary or permanent structures. Was that considered at the regular meeting at all? October 17th?
That did not come up on the October 17th meeting. I understand that the survey that they did was, I think, still live at the time. So I think they're waiting until the survey closes and they're able to collate the results from that before it comes back to the TNRD board.
Okay, and you made a comment about the Campbell Hill landfill being opened. Is that the Eco Depot, or is that
No,
something?
that was what was formerly called the landfill extension to the Cache Creek landfill. And it has now been, instead of being referred to as the landfill extension, it is now being called the Campbell Hill landfill.
Okay. And that's going to be open?
That will be open on a limited basis starting in December of this year. They hope to have it available to start accepting material from the TNRD January, February of next year.
Oh, excellent, okay. This one, 10.2, so I guess through the chair to the CFO. Just regarding the $800,000 that was not spent on the water treatment plant, there's been 3 different budgets that I've seen. The 7.9 for 100 liter per second facility, the 8.7 for 125 liter second facility, and the 9.8 million, which was asked for the taxpayers to cover for all extenuating circumstances. So which budget is that under? Is it under the 7.9, 8.7, or 9.8?
CFO Bell, would you like to answer that question?
Your worship, there was only one budget at the end and for the grant, and the total amount of the project was 9.8. But this is excluding the loan. We haven't gone, so we're just talking about the total grant amount of 8.67. And we anticipate to close out our current scope of the project 800 less than that.
800 less than the 8.7.
That's correct. So which means that we have room in our granting ability to go forward.
To move ahead with these 2.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Okay, and the same to the CFO. Has any dollars been allocated at all for piping infrastructure that's deteriorating in the village? I understand there was a report that said that the life expectancy was coming very soon, 2020 or 2021, for the entire village's water infrastructure underground.
Your worship, there's been a lot of work being done on asset management, and we're fortunate that our underground infrastructure of asbestos lined cement is lasting more than the engineered lives. So whenever we get a chance, we actually gather data and examine how the pipes are doing, and we've been very fortunate that our leaks haven't been any mainline leaks. They've been all connections, service connections. So our underground infrastructure, as far as the pipes go and as far as we know, is in really good shape. The financial part of it, we do continue to set aside funds on our capital reserves, though our underground infrastructure is far larger than our reserves are by a factor of 10, 15. So we're making progress, slow progress, but things are not looking bad for our water pipes.
Thank you. And time for one more question.
11.1 with the Legacy Park. they did make an indication for RV signage being important. And I've talked with tourists that have come into town, as well as other people who've also asked, who've also said the same thing, that many people have been asking about not the signage necessarily on the highway at the road, but the road sign going down to the river in where the campsite is it's atrocious. They can't find the campground because the signage isn't there. There isn't any signage. So if, I don't know, is there any consideration to indicate where that campsite is with better signage at the top of that hill? The same place where the river inn sign is.
I think that would come under a more comprehensive signs policy for the entire village, to look at the existing signage that we have on our businesses, directional, etc. Another business owner has approached the village about signage. So that has to be considered very carefully in terms of not only does it fit what is required for the particular area of town that it's going to go in, but we also have to look at things like sight lines. Does it obscure driveways, etc.? Is it on our property, or is it on the Ministry of Transportation highway? So there are a lot of things that need to go into that, and certainly signage has been identified as something in the village, both outside the village and within, that needs to be looked at.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Motion to take this meeting in camera. Councillor Anstead, second. Councillor Anderson, thank you very much.